Welcome to the Blonde Report, where two blondes use their hair color to lure you in, then blow your socks off with their sports knowledge. Here are your hosts, Ashton Warren and Caroline Lindstrom.
Well, welcome back to the Blonde Report, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ashton Warren.
I'm Caroline Lindstrom.
And it's almost Halloween. How fun. And so today, I'm dressed up, for those of you listening, as Sandy from Grease.
And I am, Maria Sharapova.
I
forgot my tennis racket, so I forgot who I am, I guess. I don't know.
It's understandable. All right, now this week we have a new segment that we'll push out on Mondays on social media, but we want y'all to see it here first. It's called Caroline and Ashton's MySpace Top 8. That's what it's called. Boom.
Click, click, click. As I look around, they don't do it like my click.
All right, now remember MySpace back in the day when we were in middle school? For those of you older, you were older. So, all right, our first top 8 is Georgia Tech fullback Lance Austin. Now, he was on the field due to injuries, and he pulled off one of the craziest plays. And if you didn't get to see it, Lance returned a block field goal in the last minute of the game for 78 yards. And then our second one, I was going to touch on that more, but we're pressing on time for this one, guys. We have a lot of information to cover. So, Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon, OU's untouchable running backs. Together, they averaged 355 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. And, sorry, guys, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. All right, and then so Samaje took credit for 201 of those rushing yards and 4 touchdowns, while freshman Joe Mixon ran for 154 yards, sorry guys, and 2 touchdowns. Now, OU has been unstoppable on the ground. In our third, I talked a little smack about Sean Oakman last week, and I think he heard me, because this past week he definitely showed up. And he has been named Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. He had 7 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble. Our fourth friend, J.T. Barrett. Congrats on being our fourth friend, Ohio State quarterback. Now, Barrett had his first career start against Rutgers this past weekend. He was very efficient, throwing for 223 yards, 3 touchdown passes, and he ran for 101 yards and added 2 more scores. Caroline, on to our other 4 friends.
Our other 4 friends. JT Barrett first started this season.
Oh, JK started this season.
But 5th friend, shout out to Stanford's Christian McCaffrey. He is showing why his name is being thrown out there for Heisman. He had 300 all-purpose yards with 2 touchdowns. He is an explosive player who he leads the nation with 1,818 all-purpose yards throughout 7 games. So, good for you. My next friend of the week is freshman linebacker from USC, Cameron Smith. He had 3 interceptions against the number 3 team, Utah. One of those interceptions being returned for 54 yards, 54-yard touchdown. Their win against Utah knocked Utah down to number 13 in the rankings, so they really did it to him then. South Carolina's quarterback, Dak Prescott, was named SEC Offensive Player of the Week. He threw for 3 touchdowns, rushed for 3 touchdowns, completed 25 of 35 passes for 348 yards, rushed for 117 yards. He did throw his first interception in 288 attempts. So touche. He also owns 36 school records at South Carolina.
Unreal.
Our last friend of the week, but then I have some honorable mentions because I couldn't stop.
Because you can only have 8 friends.
Yeah. So, but
no
then
new friends.
But then I have some but I want you to be my friend.
So you're welcome to.
Brandon Allen, quarterback at Arkansas University. He was 19 of 31 for 233 passing yards. But the biggest thing he contributed this week, he converted on 2 2-point conversions in the 3rd overtime and in the 4th overtime. So this boy did not quit. Arkansas beat Auburn 54 to 46. So he really proved.
Sorry guys, it's been a really long night. Just bear with us.
Yeah. 2 more. These are my QB stunners of the week because we don't have room.
Shades.
We don't have room for y'all to be in our top 8 friends, but
you're a
we
stunner.
just want you to know that we congratulate you on a good week.
We appreciate
Connor
you.
Cook, Michigan State, he had an incredible game, and then Duke's Thomas Sirk. Those 2 quarterbacks, QB stunners of the week. Way to go.
Click, click. As I look around, they don't do it like my click, 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 click.
Now on to our games of the week. We have West Virginia at number 5 TCU tonight. West Virginia averaging 36 points per game, and TCU is averaging 50 points per game. Obviously, TCU is the better offense here. However, both teams are giving up an average of 27 points per game. So West Virginia 0-3 in conference. The key for West Virginia is going to be able to contain Boykin and not allow him to get outside and make those big plays. And West Virginia's weakness is definitely going to be defending the pass since they lost their safety, Carl Joseph, in practice. And when you've got such an explosive and dynamic offense as TCU does, that's a huge loss for them today.
Yeah, it was. They seem to have maintain their composure on defense since then. However, it is a huge loss. As we talked last week, he was on the midseason All Big 12 team, which shows what a big impact he was before he got injured. The interesting thing about this game is in the 3 times that West Virginia and TCU have played one another, wherever they're playing, the home team has lost, which I think is super interesting. TCU has beaten West Virginia by 1 point in both trips to Morgantown, and then in 2012, West Virginia beat TCU at home. So West Virginia and TCU are always an extremely competitive matchup. So this game tonight is going to show a lot. TCU has been off to slow starts this whole season, so I'm interested to see if they can get that quick start going, because that's something that's going to be huge. West Virginia even hung on with Baylor for a while. They did. Were still pretty close in the third quarter with Baylor. And then Baylor just, went up on them in the fourth quarter. So
did what Baylor does.
Yeah. In their 3-game losing streak, West Virginia has allowed 46.3 points per game, and that's not something. If they do that, they're toast. Against a team like you said with
TCU and such an amazing offense,
second highest scoring offense in the nation. So, I think. But then again, West Virginia has Skylar Howard. They have Gibson. They have nailed the long ball, the deep ball, and TCU's defense has given up 840 yards over the last 2 games. So then again, if TCU's defense
is not on their game, and I feel like TCU, I feel like their defense, and with all of their losses, they're starting to really get deflated a little bit. And these offenses are starting to really run them down, and so I'm interested to see how they can keep it up going on into the end of their schedule. Now on to Oklahoma, and it's at Kansas, actually. Oklahoma finally starting to run the ball a bit more like we talked about last time. The offense is really starting to click and find that momentum with those 2 explosive running backs, Samaje, Pirine, and Joe. And they combined 355 rushing yards between them and 6 touchdowns against Texas Tech. Now, Oklahoma, they have a great thing going. Bob Stoops knows it as well. And one of the great things, though, is their O-line has really stepped up. They've been able to get the defense, push the defense back, open up those holes for those running backs, but they also need to remain balanced as an offense, really keep the other defense on their toes. But I think the loss to Texas is really what they needed, because ever since then, they've been on point. They've been great. And Dimitri Flowers, fullback, he said earlier in the week that they kind of learned their lesson against Texas, and they're not taking this game against Kansas lightly.
Yeah. But then Kansas is a team. They racked up 100 yards in penalties last week, and, they had a botched and then a blocked punt. Which were both returned for touchdowns. They gave up a safety and threw 2 interceptions. So Kansas is a team which you can kind of expect those things to happen.
Right.
But like they said, OU can't take any game lightly, as they did lose to Texas at the beginning of the season. OU's defense got it together too. They picked off Patrick Mahomes 4 times, which shows their improvement and their tenacity that they're playing with now. Like you said, after that loss against Texas, I think it lit a fire under all of them. So their defensive definitely has improved throughout the week. So
now on to Texas at Iowa State. So at the beginning of the season, we kind of saw Texas really didn't have an identity for their offense, but their offense isn't really the only one starting to contribute. Between the past 2 Texas wins, the defense has really stepped up, and they only allowed 9 points against Kansas State. And on Monday, actually, Iowa State's head coach Paul Rhodes fired offensive coordinator Mark Mangino after the 45-27 loss against Baylor. Man. And Paul Rhodes has also appointed the new starting quarterback, which will be Joel Lanning. We saw him against Baylor. He put up 3 touchdowns in the second half. Lanning has definitely been the better quarterback, and I think that's a great decision for Paul Rhodes to make.
When we saw him go in the game for Baylor, he had the perfect ball thrown to, I'm not sure who it was now. Oh, Jawan Weasley. Perfect ball to the corner of the end zone. So I'm excited to see what he can do. Then again, I think Iowa State's offense is what they had going for them.
Right.
So I think the fact that he did, I understand there were some discrepancies between Paul Rhodes and Mangino, but, I think it was a little odd that they did fire him because it seems like their offense is the one thing that was kind of clicking with Mike Warren and Josh Thomas. So.
Definitely. And if you look, they showed, I don't know, I was on some website and maybe it was Bleacher Report, and they showed a bunch of tweets that the players were tweeting, and they were just not happy about it. They didn't understand it, which it is kind of weird, and people think that Paul Rhodes is trying to cover himself, but I don't know. When you're an offensive coordinator and you can't get on the same page with the head coach, that's a problem.
Yeah. Texas showing improvements in their defense. They had 3 crucial stops in the fourth quarter, and that included a safety Dylan Haynes with an interception, which resulted in a swoops touchdown, which really just put them over the edge against K-State last week. So Texas' defense finally getting on the ball. You know what? I just realized we didn't pick picks for the other 2 games, so
we'll be back that way. We'll take a lap. We'll take a frat lap here in a minute.
Since Texas has beaten OU, I do feel like they also got a spark of momentum, and I
definitely think so too.
I'm gonna pick Texas, but then again, I'm always wrong. So what do I know? But
she is always wrong.
Jack Trice Stadium is a tough place to play. However, I think with Joel Lanning coming in his first week starting the game, new offensive coordinator Todd Sturdy, I think Texas wins this one. But it'll be an interesting game to watch because Iowa State is such a tough team to play at home. Who's your pick, girl?
Okay, I'm going to go with Iowa State just because you picked Texas. And we'll see, because every time she picks Texas, they lose. So they're probably going to lose. Yeah. So, Iowa State.
Back to OU, Kansas. I pick OU.
I don't know why I'm sitting here pondering what I'm going to pick. No, I pick OU. Sorry. Just a blank moment there.
Okay, it's TCU, West Virginia.
Actually, I don't know. I'm going to pick West Virginia.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go TCU. They're at home. I think they always find a way to win this season.
They do.
They have been, they start off slowly, but I think the game being at home is huge for them, and I think they'll be able to find a way.
I mean, they're probably going to win, but I'm going to pick West Virginia because
do it. I like being
if they do win, I can be the one hey, I picked that. Yeah. I called that.
Bouncing on to Texas Tech at Oklahoma State University.
Actually, it's Oklahoma State at Texas Tech, I believe. They're in Lubbock.
You're right. OSU had a slaughtering of Kansas last week. That was
crazy, right?
Yeah. But then again, not really.
So Texas Tech got pushed in by Oklahoma last week, and I'm expecting this game to be close given that it is in Lubbock. And Mike Gundy said this week that they still have a ways to go, still have improvements to make, which every coach I think is going to say that. Now Oklahoma State has to work on getting in that groove with their running backs and not giving up rushing yards. And this week they should be okay given that Tech doesn't have much of a defense there, but they're not going to be okay. They need to improve that heading into Baylor and Oklahoma towards the end of their schedule.
Tech's defense has given up 60 points per game and nearly 8 yards per play in their 3 conference losses. We saw last week that Oklahoma State, they put up 58 points.
Right.
So they're a team that is able to run the ball, to throw the deep ball. You know, they've got weapons like Mason Rudolph. He ranks 11th nationally with 313 passing yards per game. Yeah, passing yards per game. And is among the top 20 quarterbacks in the nation in yards per attempt and yards per completion. So he's someone that can just gun the ball down Tech's throat. And, you know, like I said, their defense has given up big yards. So that's going to be huge if OSU could just drive the ball through them. Tech, however, is playing with a chip on their shoulder. If they get one more win, they could become bowl eligible. So, you know, they're going to be fighting tooth and nail to win this game. And they need a spark for their season as well.
Oh, they do.
We're going to move on to our other games of the week. We're going to start adding in top 25 games. So this week we have Clemson at North Carolina State, and then we have Notre Dame at Temple. If y'all want a specific game covered by us, the Blind Report, just tweet us at the beginning of the week and say, hey, make sure you give me some facts about this game, and we'll do that for you.
Yeah, but it has to be a top 25 game. No WNBA. I mean, maybe we'll cover that. No hamster crawling and racing. No turtle racing. So, yeah.
All right, so Clemson, coming off a huge win against Miami, 58-0, called for Al Golden's job. Clemson just putting up a dominant performance against Miami.
Yeah, and they were an 8-point favorite against Miami. And, man, that game got out of hand quick. And they won by 58. They are a 10-point favorite over North Carolina State. Last undefeated team in the ACC. They won the last 10 out of 11 games against North Carolina State.
Clemson's defense is only giving up 14.3 points per game. North Carolina State's defense is only giving up 16.1 points per game. So both teams have stingy defenses. So I think this is going to be a battle of who's going to give up less points. But then Clemson has Deshaun Watson. His name is being thrown out for the Heisman. He, last week against Miami, he's not putting up huge, outrageous numbers, but he's being effective, and that's all your quarterback needs to be, essentially. He passed for 143 yards, 1 touchdown, had 98 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. For this season, he has thrown 15 touchdowns and ran for 7 touchdowns. He's a QBR of 86.5. So, he is a key player to Clemson's offense, and I think the deciding factor in this is North Carolina State's offense. In their 2 losses, their offense really struggled and only scored 13 points. We can see that Clemson can put up big numbers like they did against Miami.
Oh, yeah.
So I think since both teams have such stingy defenses, I think if Clemson's able to, you know, go for the deep ball with
get the ball down the field,
have him take it up the middle, you know, I think Clemson wins this game.
I agree. In North Carolina State, they're ended their 2-game losing streak against Wake Forest, 35-17. North Carolina State cornerback Jack Toko, I'm sorry, Jack. I love you, though. He said it's very impressive, but you can't look at it out like a monster because they scored 58 points against Miami's defense, but we run a different scheme. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. North Carolina State's defense obviously confident that they can take over Clemson. We'll move on to Notre Dame at Temple. College Game Day is at this game, and I am super jealous for all their students because College Game Day at Baylor was one of the funnest experiences ever. But we know what a momentum boost that gives.
Oh, it's huge.
So, you know, Temple, I don't know, I'm rooting for you. My roommate would kill me that now goes to Notre Dame, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, Temple's undefeated. They have a great team this season. They're for the first time in the program history, they're 7-0. And so they're this is the first ever ranked matchup. Returned 19 starters from last season, 6-6 team who believes they're bowl eligible.
That was their last season, yeah.
Right.
They believe they got snubbed, saying, you know, they should have gone to a bowl. And they're returning so many starters, so that proves that they were good last year. They're going to be even better this year. Yeah. Temple is a team that just finds a way to win. Last week against East Carolina, they had 2 blocked punts to score, and then they got scores up from there. So it's like they will do anything to win. They play with a huge level of tenacity. They have the number 6 run defense, and linebacker Tyler, I have no idea what your name is, has 4 interceptions. You can see him flying around on the side from sideline to sideline. Matherich. I don't know.
Matherich?
I don't know. Notre Dame, of course, they've got CJ Perosi. He has topped the 100 mark for the 5th time this season and has 11 touchdowns on this season. So
No. The funny thing is Notre Dame is 15-0 on Halloween.
they're playing on Halloween.
So
And they're 15-0 on Halloween,
they've got
history weighing on their side.
They've got some Halloween spooky magic going on there. And second time College Game Day will be at their game. Away, they lost to Clemson. Special teams has generated 3 touchdowns in 2015. So,
yeah, I think, although I don't know why I want Notre Dame to lose. I don't either. I have nothing against them as a team, but
I wish they would get in a conference.
Think it's kind of cool. Like Temple, it's the first time they've ever been 7-0. What if they beat Notre Dame?
I'm rooting for Temple because and
they're the Owls. That's cute.
They are really cute. They are really cute. No, I believe that it's very possible Temple could pull off this game. It's going to be a close.
They could have the momentum, but then again, Notre Dame was down against USC 31-24. They came back to beat USC 41-31. Notre Dame finds a way to win ball games. They only lost to Clemson, who we know is a super powerful team. They find a way to win. And when they did lose, it was only by 2 points. So
and they are coming off a bye week.
They're
so
fresh.
That's in their favor too.
Yeah. So I pick Notre Dame, but good for you, Owls. Way to be 7-0.
I'm gonna pick Temple.
Yes. We will head now to our guest of the week. Yay!
We've got Chris Childers. He hosts Full Ride on SiriusXM College Sports Nation. Chris, how are you doing?
Doing awesome. It's good to be on your show. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're not blonde, but you're always welcome.
Awesome.
So we're going to talk to you a little bit about Baylor's quarterback situation. Jarrett Stidham in, true freshman, replacing Seth Russell due to a neck injury. What have you seen out of Stidham that you've liked so far? And I know we've only seen him in the 3rd and 4th quarter.
He's been really good so far. I think there's a lot to like about the kid. What you've seen already, he's got a great pedigree, and everybody that you talk to, everybody that you ask about Jarrett Stidham, they can't stop bragging about the kid. Talking about his maturity. Yes, he's a young player, but the kid gets it. He's got the it factor. He's so physically gifted. So when you look at what he shows right now, and I know it's been mop-up duty, like you alluded to, but the kid's got a poise about him. Now, this is a big step. Obviously, now you are the starting quarterback of Baylor. Baylor has aspirations of playing for the national championship. So with that comes more pressure. Now, if you're an 18-year-old kid, can you handle the pressure? Because every game now moving forward gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger for Baylor. And if you look at Baylor's resume up to this point, they haven't played anybody great. Every single big game that's going to make or break them for the college football playoff is still left on the schedule. When you look at Oklahoma State, when you look at TCU at the end of the season, when you look at Oklahoma, every big roadblock, every big hurdle is still up in front of Baylor. So how does this young kid handle it? It's going to be a big question, but he's a kid I watched a lot when he was in high school at Stephenville, Texas. This guy's got the goods. And the thing about Jarrett Stidham, he's an absolute perfect fit for Art Briles in the offense. He was tailor-made to run this system. So it's not like he's going to be overwhelmed with what's going to be thrown at him system-wise. And if he's mentally ready, like Art Briles said, I think Baylor's going to be fine. I know there's a lot of other national pundits that are a little bit scared of Baylor moving forward because of the fact they have a young quarterback now. But if you look at it, he doesn't have to be special. He just has to be good.
Right.
Because he's got one of the best offensive lines in college football in front of him. Corey Coleman, for my money, I got to be honest with you, if I'm voting for the Heisman Trophy right now, and I know Leonard Fournette's been spectacular at LSU, but I'm voting Corey Coleman. This guy's got 18 touchdown catches already this season. That's one better than the nation's leader last year, who had 17. That's how dominant he's been after 7 games. So you have him. Shock Linwood is a guy already at almost 1,000 yards rushing. out of the backfield. Stidham doesn't have to be magnificent. He doesn't have to be Seth Russell. He just has to be good. I think there's enough help around him. I really think with Stidham at quarterback, you're not going to see much of a drop-off. I think Baylor's going to be fine.
So, and this is very premature, but given everything that you've just said, you think Baylor's going to be okay? Do you think they're going to be in the top 4 when it's all said and done?
I think so. I still think they're the best team in the Big 12. I worry about other teams in this league. You know, you look at a team that's undefeated like Oklahoma State, they look flimsy to me, and they really haven't beaten anybody of worth yet, and all their big games are coming up too on the schedule. But Oklahoma State, their defense is okay, and they can't run the football. And I think eventually in this league, as the season unfolds and you play better opponents, that's going to catch up with them. And there's times, you know, Mason Rudolph, their quarterback's a little bit turnover prone. So I'm not really buying them. Then you look at TCU, and they've had a couple of close calls against average teams. I mean, Kansas State had a big lead on them. They had to come back to beat them. You look at the other game they had against Texas Tech, who's a decent team, not a great team, and they needed a fluke touchdown there at the end just to win that football game and come back and get a W. The defense is so banged up. It's been so riddled with injuries. Eventually, when you're playing Baylor and you're playing teams like that, Oklahoma State, it's going to catch up with you. And then Oklahoma at this point, I think Oklahoma is really good, but they're playing from behind. I mean, they had that massive pickup, which was just inexcusable against Texas. I think they have the goods, but, you know, at this point, if Oklahoma gets beat by anybody and their schedule is so tough moving forward, they got to play the 3 best teams in the league the rest of the way, the teams we've been talking about, Baylor, TCU, and Oklahoma State. So I think it's going to be tough for them to run the table. So at this point, to me, Baylor's the best bet. Defensively, I love what they have, you know, across the board. Not a great defense, but a good defense with Phil Bennett running the show there on that side of the football. You know, they got some big-time NFL prospects in the defense, and that's something they haven't had in years past. So I think when you look at this team overall, when you look at a Corey Coleman, when you look at a Sean Linwood, the potential of a Jarrett Stidham, that offensive line with a quality defense, I really think Baylor still at this point is the team to beat in the Big 12. And I personally think they're going to be in the playoff when it's all said and done.
Chris, this is Caroline. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to switch things over to Notre Dame. They are a one-loss team, but with Clemson being as dominant as they have the past weeks, do you think that kind of holds more weight for Notre Dame's one loss?
I do. It was only by 2 points in a monsoon. You know, they came up with 2 points versus short of tying that football game and forcing overtime. And at this point, if you look at Clemson's schedule moving forward, I don't think Clemson's going to lose a football game. I fully expect they're going to be 13-0 at the end of the season. In fact, if I were to say there's a team that's a lock to get into the playoff, it's Clemson. So if you look at that loss for Notre Dame, that's not a bad loss. I mean, losing by 2 points to a team like that on the road that I think is a top 4 playoff team, there's no shame in that. I just don't see anybody beating Clemson the rest of the way. Now, I think Notre Dame's got a couple of breaks here because USC hasn't been the team we thought they were going to be. There's some other teams on their schedule that maybe haven't panned out. But the good news for Notre Dame, there's been some surprises on their schedule, like Pittsburgh, who plays tomorrow night. I mean, that Pittsburgh team is sitting at 6-1, and Pitt is a top 25 team they're going to play in a couple of weeks. So that's a big opportunity for them as far as strength of schedule. And how about the game coming up Saturday against Temple? It's going to be a hard game for me to watch personally. I grew up a big Notre Dame fan, but I'm really good friends with Temple coach Matt Rule. But, you know, Matt Rule's done a heck of a job with that Temple program. They're top 25. They're undefeated. So if Notre Dame can go on the road and beat them, that's going to help the strength of schedule. And, of course, they have that game later on in the season against Stanford. And Stanford right now, to me, is the best chance for the Pac-12 to get a team into the college football playoffs. So I think Notre Dame, the rest of the way, they're in pretty good shape right now. And I'm sorry about my daughter crying in the background.
Can't even hear it. No worries. Well, one last question for you. If you have to pick the top 4 programs in the nation right now to make it to the college playoff series, what are your 4 teams?
Well, Clemson's one of them for sure, and we just talked about them. I think Baylor's another team that you can put into the college football playoff. You know, I think Stanford to me has been so darn impressive. Christian McCaffrey's another guy. We talked about Corey Coleman, and we talked about Leonard Fournette, but, you know, Christian McCaffrey, he's doing everything offensively for that Stanford team. And Kevin Hogan, their senior quarterback, has been starting for multiple years now. He's finally really coming on. And, that guy right now has the best quarterback rating in the Pac-12. So you look at that Stanford team, I think that's the team that I expect to be in. And then we have to have a team from the SEC. I just can't envision an SEC champion not making it. So at this point, I guess I'm going to lean on LSU. LSU looks impressive up to this point. They got one of the best players in America, and Leonard Fournette. Brandon Harris, the quarterback, was considered a little bit of a liability early on in the year. But the last 3 games, he's played well. He's had over 200 yards passing in the last 3 outings for that LSU football team. And defensively, with Kevin Steele, they're rock solid. So I think I'd have to go with those 4 right now. Clemson, Baylor, you look at that LSU football team in Stanford. I think that's the 4 best teams at this point after 8 weeks.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining the
Click, 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 click. As I look around, they don't do it like my click, 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 click.